We are now moving on to a panel discussion, and the topic is shopping in the technology fish market, the do's and the don'ts. The world is changing rapidly, having a vortex of technology, people, innovation, data, and AI all wrapped together to bring a huge shift. To talk about the current trends in the HR technology and the importance of choosing the right tools, we have with us today a very experienced and an eminent panel. I'd like to start with introducing and inviting our panelists one by one. Joining us on the panel today is Vikrant Bhatnagar, Chief HR IT United Nations. Vikrant is capable of building cutting-edge tools for corporations to streamline operations, boost efficiency, and create profit. With an overall experience of 2 decades, he has a proven track record of delivering innovative solutions to renowned clients. Vikrant is also on the panel of the Cybersecurity Advisory of Government of India. Please join us welcoming Vikrant Bhatnagar. On the panel with us today is Nikhil Shembekar, Vice President, Corporate IT, Sun Pharma. Nikhil has managed and implemented technology transformation initiatives across diverse industries and geographies. He has been a part of companies like RPG Group, Diageo, Godrej, Infosys in the past. Nikhil also runs a HR Tech India Professionals Forum where like-minded enthusiasts meet and discuss various issues and trends in the HR tech. Nikhil, please join us, welcome him. Our next panelist today is Daniel Callahan, Chief Executive Officer at Verimark, an internationally published author on the subject of professional development and entrepreneurship with books published by Penguin, Michael O'Mara, and Brightword. Currently, he's working as Chief Executive Officer at Verimark, leading it to become a global player in the pre-employment screening and blockchain ID market. That is Daniel Callahan. I'd like to next invite Latika Pai, Country Head, Microsoft for Startups, MENA and SAARC. Latika is the Regional Head at Microsoft for Startups, which supports startups in the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. Her prior work experience includes large technology companies in the US and UK like Nortel and a $300 billion funded startup, Relera. Welcoming Latika Pai with us on the dais. And to moderate this very informative panel discussion, we have with us Ashok Veera, Associate Director at Accenture. Ashok has been working in Accenture for 18 years now with an overall IT experience of 21 years. He started his journey as a software engineer at Accenture Mumbai and is now working as their CIO lead for HR initiatives, leading multi-year initiatives for transforming their talent experience. Ashok has also delivered multiple award-winning technology capabilities for Accenture. Welcoming Ashok and all our panelists. Please join us giving them a round of applause for their valuable time. And with this, we hand it over to our moderator. Ashok, over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is an extremely exciting topic. And the way I would like to kind of ignite the topic is I'm going to play a role and I'm going to be the villain, right? And all the barriers are created by me. And the panelists here are going to very much kind of figure out how they bulldoze over me to drive the very welcome innovation, the very welcome transformation that every one of you in the room are really inching towards for your respective organizations, right? So that's the scene that we are going to create. We'll obviously touch some perennial points and kind of we'll have the panelists here who is very experienced on how they have faced those obstacles and really drive transformations in their roles in their organizations, right? So that's the overall construct of the discussion. And obviously we'll have some time hopefully for Q&A as well as the discussion goes through, right? So to get the thing started, the plan here is to while everyone wants to drive the technology transformation and talent acquisition space is the foray, right? It's definitely every organization in the world, however small or big, is inching towards. The ask is clear, the need is clear, but the journey to get there is quite complicated, right? Every one of you are in a different, I would say, at a different velocity, at a different stage of the transformation that you are urging to, right? And there are barriers, right? So we'll get into the first foremost barrier, which is as you want to drive the transformation, you are, as an organization, you have policies, you have processes, you have a plethora of stuff which is there. When you look for a solution for a problem that you want to kind of fix, or you want to really drive an innovation and transformation, right? These are the barriers. Do you think the engagement model which organizations have today are conducive to kind of bring that transformation? So maybe the first question to you, Daniel, in terms of how would you really, in your role of digital transformation into your past organizations and the things that you are driving today, right? What do you think the organizations needs to do to really break that barrier of the engagement model? Like, okay, let's take an example. I need a digital screening solution, right, for talent acquisition, right? I heard in the morning that there are 250 such players. Now, we want to get the best one which works for the organization. But now how do you go through? Because you really want to kind of get the transformation going in your organization. So what do you do then?
I'm a big fan, personally, of the rule, do first, apologize later, which most IT departments obviously hate. But I think whether it's HR technology, whether it's recruitment technology, whether it's any kind of project management, the process of selecting a vendor ultimately should still remain the same. The framework should remain the same. The first question is obviously, what is the outcome that you're desiring? Right? And if it's not about your existing process, it's not about your existing technology, it is what is the outcome of this exercise that we are trying to shape and trying to drive forward. And then the rest of the decision-making process and the rest of the vendor selection process comes through based on that. Because your existing process is not already delivering the outcome, right? So you need to change it. So then again, trying to shoehorn new technology into an old process or trying to shoehorn new technology into an old framework of decision-making is ultimately just a waste of time.
So I just wanted to kind of add on to what he was saying. So I think there is, so I always keep saying that the new cloud technologies give the organizations a very good chance to take a relook at their processes itself. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to go back and take a step back and if you really want to re-engineer your process itself. So I think that's probably always the starting point. So like he said, no point in bringing a brand new shiny object and putting it into the old process. It's not going to work. So and always the blame always falls on the technology. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to relook at the process itself, see if there is a way to re-engineer them, and then along with that get the new technology. So that's the point I just wanted to add on to what he was saying.
Fantastic. So basically, you absolutely need to tailor your engagement process in terms of how do you really interact with the ecosystem, right, to really get the desired innovation that you're trying to kind of get after. Let me get to another point, which is speed, right? And I'm the villain, right? I would put all the obstacles to bring anything new in the ecosystem in the organization to put for the organization interest, right? I'm going to bring all the buzzwords around security, around integration, around data privacy, around lot of stuff, basically, right? And bringing any new player who says that, hey, I'm going to give you in 2 hours, this is not happening because I will bring the 100+ checklist item to say that you have to go through all of this to entertain any of the new providers, right? So maybe, Latika, over to you. How do you think you will manage this challenge of the nasty CIOs like me who are being the barriers of inviting the new blood which is out there in the market who's really trying to pretty much bring the transformation, bring the innovation, which technology and the back of technology, right, for the betterment for the entire community, for all the stakeholders. Just it's the businesses, the people who run the process, people who are kind of going through the process, for everyone.
Thanks, Ashok. So if you're the villain, does that make me the heroine?
Absolutely.
Great.
As long as you can pretty much counter me.
Absolutely. Challenge taken. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate Talview for putting this phenomenal session together. Big round of applause. Talview started at the Microsoft Accelerator, and it's amazing how in a few years, how brilliantly they've done. To have a program which is cutting edge like this is just such a matter of pride for all of us. So congratulations to Sanjo and his team. As far as your point, I think this is really what's going on today, where and I never get invited to speak at HR forums for the twice, mainly because HR people are looking like, what is she saying to us, and why is she saying these things to us, right? The reason is that, and now I think the CIOs are not going to invite me anymore. The way the world has changed, and this is a statement that I make globally, which is it's no longer the big eating the small, it's the fast eating the slow. Today, there are companies that have been around for 75 years, may not be there for the next 7, 5, 10 years. Yeah. The reason is they are not unwilling in terms of moving at the speed at which they need to for digital transformation to happen. It's fabulous for the consulting companies who come in and they spend hours and hours. Having been a consultant once upon a time, this is a dream come true. I was part of the BPR revolution, and now it's part, everything is changed into digital transformation. The reality is the CIO is no longer the decision maker. The decision making in terms of what each of the CXOs require has to be given into his or her hands. So the chief marketing officer would like to implement a particular technology in place. The CIO has to kind of stop finding reasons why not to. Most importantly, which I think this is very India focused, is I call the NIH, which is the not invented here. So if it's not invented in the organization, any startup who's doing something, I can throw 4 programmers at it and it can happen. That's not the truth. The reality is Talview has been here for a while, it's got funded several millions of dollars, and the focus is very sharp. It's not just quite getting someone to build a program and get it going. I think that's the first barrier that we need to go past. The second barrier is that there is reluctance, and understandably so, saying that if we bring a new technology in and into trying to match up to existing processes that was just mentioned, how does that function? My suggestion to that is by the time you change process, it'll be next year. Bring the solution in, try it out, do it in a small manner, see how it works. The beauty about what startups can do for you is getting you, on track within 60 days. Within 60, 90 days, you can decide, is this working for me or not working for me? It's no longer the Oracle, Siebels, etc. of the world, the PeopleSoft where we came in. It was a 9-month, to 18-month life cycle. Literally in 90 days, whether it's adding value or not adding value. So there has to be CXOs who come up front, say that here is the use case that we're trying, here is the business challenge we're trying to solve, throw it out there for startups, and I assure you there are some brilliant ones here who are born in India, but are all going out of the country, and they're being adopted. So for all of you here in India, who are decision makers, very happy to come and talk to you about our portfolio of startups. This is the program we're going to be launching next week when Satya is in town, where we get curated startups to engage with curated companies who are committed to working with startups. The only one request I have is, please, no free POCs. Right? This is again, the bane having been an entrepreneur myself. And the second is the decision making has to be quite, quick. We can't waste 9 months in terms of deciding whether the solution is accurate or not. So I think speed and decision making is going to be something that is very important to an organization to be really really determined in terms of adopting digital transmission.
Got it. So I will take a seat back if you convince to me that these startups are not going to break down my security model. And for that, I'm going to go to Vic to give his perspective with UN being spread out in 200 plus countries, right? How do you, I mean, I'm sure your needs are very diverse, right? And you definitely need to partner with many solution providers, service providers. How would you, what is your model and framework, right, to make sure that the entire aspect of protecting the organization interest and the organization not in the newspaper for wrong reasons and so on, right, as you invite many players. So how would you tackle that?
Sure, thank you. So as you clearly mentioned, we operate out of so many countries. That means our recruiting cycles are long. We have about 8,000 to 12,000 people applying every hour. We cannot change our entire process at one time because we are answerable to so many countries, there's so much funds involved. So we went through this thinking cap, this process that if you try to change our entire recruiting cycle, it might take forever. So how do we take advantage of these startup companies not losing out our fabric of work? So what we came up with, that there are certain common factors among all UN agencies. Those can be given to a startup where our turnaround time could be 60 to 90 days. Incubation, see how it works, get an impact, and move on. So what we have created is a typical technical term called Sandbox Environment, where we invite some of the boutique companies or startup companies to come and help in certain areas of recruitment. We've broken down recruitment into a dozen possible streams, and we're taking help from them of how they could help in a particular place. A good example is reference check. Our reference check itself was taking so long that you have the candidate ready, you have the funding ready, but the reference check takes forever because it could be multilateral countries, they could have worked in different agencies, and we have to do a thorough check. You don't want to hire somebody in UNICEF who has a background with abuse or child abuse. So we outsourced it to something called a 1HR, a global reference check, where we are using high technology, new technology to improve reference check and the speed also. So yes, it is helping our entire instant hiring platform. But if you ask the large organization we have, we could not change just about everything. Now coming to what he was mentioning about security aspect, we have PeopleSoft, we have SAP, we have multiple ERPs, small players, big players, all mixed into one. So when they come to us, think of us like a space aircraft carrier. You have a main aircraft carrier, but you have a lot of frigates and destroyers and other ships around that. They all need to go in one direction towards one target, but they all have different speed, different work that they need to do. So that's the kind of ecosystem we have created through Sandbox. We give certain problems and expect a certain solution from different vendors at different point of time, different services. And once they do, and we prove that in a smaller country, so we could pick Lebanon as a country, or sometime Congo, or sometime Thailand, and run that recruiting cycle or reference cycle there. If it works, then try to implement it globally. Right now we're trying to do something similar with digital interview, because but see the flip side of it, not everybody can do digital interview. If you're looking at hiring in India, yes, the internet expandability is high, but try doing that in Congo or try doing that in Tanzania. They'll not have that speed to do digital recruitment. So we are taking a platform called digital recruitment, but making changes to that so they could be an offline version to the same digital recruitment. So we as a company or organization take these startup solutions and have to customize or configure that to some extent to meet our unique statement of work.
Fantastic.
So
Okay.
I just wanted to add to
Yes.
what Latika was speaking, where something that we did at my erstwhile organization, that's RPG Group. So, and I invite many of your companies as well to look at that model. So we used to call it a startup hour, So every month we used to invite startups to come and present their solutions So one, I think it also opens up our eyes in terms of what's happening in the market, what innovation is happening in the market. It also opens up the HR's eyes or even the CIO's eyes to what's happening in the market. So that's an important thing for us to do. So it also gives us an opportunity to meet different startups that are there offering different kind of solutions. Something that we may not even have thought of. So for example, I'm just giving an example. Let's say you want to do referrals via SMS or WhatsApp or whatever. So some such solution like that is so many solutions are there in the market. So we used to call startups, they used to come and present, and we used to take some of them, do some small pilots, as Latika was saying, look at small pilots. Some of them would succeed, some of them would not succeed, but at least it gives you an opportunity to try out multiple initiatives in your organization. And happy to say that I think Talview was one of the companies that we selected last year, and they actually implemented it in our one of our group companies, that is CIAT. So that's how I think the innovation will happen in organizations.
Fantastic. So we tackled the problem of how do you engage the players, and you need to really change your processes, really be disruptive there and start with it. We will invite the startups to kind of bring that agility that is required, because speed is the essence. We will have to kind of engage to make it, to meet the diverse needs as well, right? As Nikhil has also mentioned. We covered all that path. Now there is what I would say is a change resistance, right? You brought in the players, you brought in the thing that you feel is really going to bring the outcome, right? But there is this change resistance, right? Because there has been a way of working, of doing things, right? Bringing any newcomer, any new solution provider, right? You face those barriers. So Daniel, if you have a perspective of how do you change, how that skepticism which is there in people's mind to adopt that change, have you faced those, and what would be your advice to tackle those?
So I think the skepticism still exists in two parts. Right? One, very heavily within the IT department. And if you are using early stage or growth companies and the way that they treat those, as well as then the end users. Now, in the end, from the IT department, it is still, you can't have startups come in and put them through the same procurement process and IT tests as, say, an SAP. Right? But you can still make sure that they have gone through a decent and rigorous security test through that. And you have to, if you want the pilot or traction to get, the pilot to get any traction, help IT and help the startup to get over that technical gateway as soon as possible. It's just part of the puzzle. From the end user point of view, it remains, as with many change management programs, about involving them in the decision, about involving them in the thought process, and ultimately trying to highlight why this technology and why this process should ultimately make their life better. Now, Talview talks about remote and automate and reuse. Now, with automate and reuse, that reduces a lot of man hours. Right? Those man hours, from a CFO's point of view, means reduction in headcount, which ultimately means that people involved in that daily work process have a certain skepticism or certain concern around what will happen with their full-time job.
Yeah.
And it is your job as leaders and talent acquisition professionals and HR leaders across the business to, show them that that concern is unfounded, and really try and emphasize the benefits on actually, look, we're removing the manual admin part so that you can focus on the higher value parts of really nurturing and providing a great employee experience. But without alleviating some of those natural concerns around, will my job be safe if we automate all of this? Or what will happen to me because that's the part I'm really good at? Then you're never really going to get a full level of adoption from the program.
Yeah. You had a point.
Yeah, may I add to that? So I totally agree with Daniel. What we call this as a concept of when this new player comes, will he or she run away with my lunch money? So how do you take care of that psyche? There are lovers of a system, there are lovers of a process, and we need to break that psyche and say, your lunch money is safe. Best way to do that, probably, that I've tried, it works, is get them involved in this new process. What's in for them? So while they're married to this system or this process that they have loved for many years, now involving them and saying you'll be the focal point or you'll be part of that team and this is your baby to take care of, the change management becomes easy, because change management is an overused word. How do you go about doing change management in a psyche of a person, in a whole team that is so focused on delivering with a particular process and a particular system, and here you're coming with this, flashing this new idea or a product, and you'll come often because that's part of your job, or that's what you like to do, is bring these new company in, and they will always see like a red, thing around you that, okay, this guy is always running after me for something or the other. But if you make them part of that incubation process, deployment process, or make them the heroes or the heroines of that particular process or system, it does make it easy on the environment and adaptability, and of course, change management is much easier that way.
Super. Let me get to, sorry, you had a point.
So one of the things I think that's very important, we've talked about digital transformation and technology for digital transformation. I think we should also talk about talent and the people in terms of how they are going to accept it. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to the senior leadership at Goldman Sachs, and they asked me, Latika, how do you now change, how do you deal with this in terms of getting mindset change to adopt? I mean, exactly about this lunch money. And I had I do have a very simple point of view on this, which is today I always in my teams, I pick youth over experience. The reason is the millennials are the ones who will adopt technology. They don't have any issues. They don't want clunky stuff. They don't care, right? They don't care about the job. The more it's automated, the happier they are. So if you really want your technology to be adopted, the decision making, and you need to bring that set of youngsters onto the team, because they will actually tell you whether this works or if it doesn't work, and find ways in terms of making sure your processes are changed overnight. So my team so I manage about 15 countries. I have 3 people on my team, and all 3 of them have 2 years of experience. Right? Because they can move at the speed that I'd like them to move at. They're willing, they understand technology, they're willing, their points of view are very, very different from the senior teams, the leaders that are already there today at Microsoft. So this is something that I encourage all of you who are hiring, is that you all are building, your companies for the next generation. Get inputs from the next generation. I almost feel embarrassed to say I have 25 years of experience. I'm like, no, right? I feel very archaic about it. So that's something that I really would encourage all of you to pursue and enable and empower that set of employees in your organizations, especially if you're trying to do radical digital transformation in your orgs.
I think Latika brings about a good point. I think what I want to add to her point is also that it's also important as to why are you bringing the technology into place. I think I think Josh Bersin calls it in the flow of work kind of a thing, right? So if whatever you're doing, if it is flowing in the the work that you're doing, then it's more easily adaptable, right? A common failure point is asking people to do social collaboration. So you bring in a social collaboration tool and you say, go and post pictures on that. So people are saying, no, I'm already doing social collaboration on my regular Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and asking me to do something else over here, right? So then you say that it's not going to work for me. So I think it's important that we also analyze how people are using technology in their flow of work. I think that's also important.
No, absolutely. And let me just pivot a little bit, because I'm sure everyone is vouching towards a better experience, right? Better experience from the people who are going through the process, better experience for people who are executing the process, the better experience for people who really is looking for the value out of the process and stuff like that, right? Everyone is vouching for a better experience. When you are in the ecosystem where there is no one player or a one solution type of stuff, it's across the board, it's spread across the spectrum, right? How would you manage the cultural element of the experience, the uniqueness of what you really is an essence of the organization in terms of what exactly the organization means, right? And you have the plethora of these technology service providers or even the outsourcing partners, because in talent acquisition, a lot of things is outsourced as well, right? So when what would be your advice in terms of how do you kind of work with the service provider or a solution provider really to kind of be part of the culture and the experience that you want to deliver and not hamper that experience as well? I don't know, Vic, you have any thoughts around it?
Sure. So just before that, just to give you an idea of the extent of selection we make. So Harvard University has a 4.0 selection rate. Indian Administrative Services has a 0.10 selection rate, and we at UN are at 0.25% selection rate. That means the number of people who apply, 0.25% are selected. But that doesn't take away the fact that we use recruitment as a brand extension. We want to reach out, and we do reach out to the youths of the world today, something called YPP program, Youth Professional Program. And it's very important for us that the experience for them is way different than a person applying in their mid-40s or 50s or 60s because of technology threshold that could be different. So what we have done, we've kept our main platform as same as it could be, but we built encapsulation platforms around that, which a youth would be more encouraged to apply, more easy for them to apply, and they don't have to go through our 29 pages of application process that might be okay with somebody who's senior or who somebody has a different experience in their life. So culture counts a lot, and as you mentioned about a service provider, I would like to give an example. I was with Accenture in Midwest, and part of the Accenture team came from New York to implement something in Dallas for a telecom company. Just within a country, the culture was so different that they couldn't fit into the Midwest way of working on that particular engagement. When we hired some more people from the areas, younger people from Midwest, it was much easier to work with the client. So it's very important that when you're looking at a service provider, you're looking at a product, that it matches with your social and cultural compatibility. Does not mean it has to be from the same region, but you ought to speak to the consultants who will come on board, not the consultants that the company is showing to you. There's a difference between what they show and what ends up coming to you on ground reality. So that's very important. The other thing that definitely works for us is testimonials with other people who have actually done this work. Face-to-face, talking to other clients who have used these services. They would give you a good example. They have nothing to hide or not tell you in terms of what their experience has been. You can take that with a pinch of salt, but that's a good place to start working out your details. Last but not the least, we have a whole engagement called Young UN, where hiring millennials or the younger crowd is very important to us. But how do we go about doing it? As Atika said, if you hire too much experienced people, they're not going to look at the UX or the UI experience of hiring someone. So we started doing a lot of work with universities in the second and third year of their particular academic profession to see how they would like to see a hiring system being designed for them and what would entice them to apply for a particular job. So that helped us a lot to understand on the other side of the table that what they're looking for as to hire. They're not looking for a lengthy application, but they're not also looking for a completely mobile solution, but something they could get started on a mobile, continue to get status on a mobile, and move about with the job. So I think that's very important to engage with the people you want to hire and ask them what would make you hire and improving your brand extension.
Fantastic. Vic, I know we are coming, and I'm mindful that we are in the middle of the lunch, or we are blocking the lunch hour as well. We need to take few questions as well. But I, as a villain, step down. I will be more nimble to kind of get these startups. We'll have to relook our engagement models to make sure that while we protect the organization interest in terms of whatever we call, we hide behind, if you want to say, security policies, whatnot, but we need to figure out the model in which we are protecting the secure aspect of it, and you get some great ideas around how to tackle it. We absolutely have to work towards bringing the users in the game, right, to make sure that they are being part of the entire delivery of the innovation, that whoever is the partner whom we are partnering, and we really need to get the engagement right, is the essence of it, right? And then there are several great ideas that all of you have put in. So definitely I am bound to change from here.
Can we have others follow Ashok on his pledge with a show of hands?
Okay, so time for questions from the group, from the audience here, from what you heard, and please point your question to any of us.
My question is regarding, suppose we are doing a vendor analysis. We have a lot of big players in the market, a lot of startups. We're talking about cloud solutioning. So cloud solutioning comes with less of customization, whereas there are few startups which offers customization. So my question is two-part. We compromise on process sometimes. Sometimes we go for a customization. So what do you think is a magical figure that, from your experience, what percentage of process can be changed, or, what percentage of customization can be done?
Can I take that?
There are many takers. Go ahead.
No. So I think you'll have to one has to find the right balance. Like I said, sometimes we also the process is set for many years in the organization, right? So when you're implementing cloud solutions, it also gives you an opportunity to relook at this process. So in my past organizations, we have actually redone some of these processes to meet the requirement of the tool, but it also gave us a much better handle on the process itself. It also improved the employee experience itself. So, so there is a fine balance. So, but if you say that, no, it's not at all possible for me to change, and, this is what needs to be done, and then of course the tool will have to be customized in your language to meet the requirement. So I think it's a fine balance one has to strike about.
But just to be very provocative on this one, I think all the service providers or solution providers have their roadmap and their ideology behind it, right? And you as a buyer has a particular roadmap in your North Stars as well, right? It's very easy to figure out is there an alignment to that or not. And I think you need to be very upfront and honest on that to even decide to see whether you want to get into engagement or not, and not push too much, because you will have more barriers to get into it. I think that alignment identification is very important, that whatever the North Star that you are going, which itself will tell you how much flexible you are to customize your process, and how is that product roadmap or the service roadmap is building, right, is aligning to your thoughts. That I think is what becomes the intersection of, is there the two parties coming together for something as a good for change, or you will always have a resistance both sides to make it work, right? That's a bigger risk that you need to analyze upfront.
So I would add, so again what you are trying to achieve. And, customization would add 3 months. Change the process, add another 3 months. Getting it all rolled up and adopted, add another 3 months. So you've lost 9 months before anything's even happened. Or you could have something that's much more sort of out of the box and implementable, and so it's a class-based, younger company again. That starts tomorrow. As with all things, there is the Pareto's law of positive effect. Right? So what are the 20% of the key components that will deliver the ultimate 80% of the advantages to that now? And then you have to, as we saw earlier, it's very much a data-driven decision. That 9 months of delay in terms of possibly getting something rolled out and the process perfected and adopted, versus trying out something now and call it an experiment, call it something, a proof of concept or a pilot or whatever you need to, but just trying something out and see if you really need all of those changes first. Because everyone hypothesizes about the customizations we need to fit an old process that you don't really even know if it's the right process still anymore. Whereas actually just, again, trying something that you can, that has been through a relative level of IT security and clearance and so forth, and just really starting to get a feel of what those new potential gains and new metrics could be, is often a much more rewarding way to go, and will be much more educational in terms of what customizations even still need to exist in the longer run.
Deepak, I would just like to add one thing. There's a thumb rule that I try to follow. If you're a large organization, 80% should match with one of the tools you're looking at or solution looking at. Otherwise, looking at a wrong tool or a wrong solution. If you're a smaller or a medium organization, 90% should be matching at a talent acquisition tool you're looking at. Of course, 10% is configuration or customization. Because there's so much available in the market, you need to look more than just adopt something because of a pricing index or somebody is using it. And then, as Daniel said, spend more time in customizing it. So 80% for large organization, 90% for medium to small.
I think, Deepak, the good news is I'm here with a dream panel, because truly this is what is, they have driven DT in their organizations. I would say zero customization. That's the whole point. You have solutions that are out there. Just, that they've taken best practices from several orgs and put it together. They have their product roadmap that's coming in. So truly leverage what they have before, kind of getting stuck to saying, but this is the only way that needs to be done. It's really, most of them are parameter driven. That's the beauty about all the solutions that are coming out. Start plugging that in. So go with the mindset that you really don't want customization. Instead, you want to be able to leverage that technology sooner than later. That should be the mantra, and then maybe a bit of tweaking here and there should be the way forward.
So first of all, thank you for a lot of good insights, and I'm one of the shoppers in technology market. And one of the biggest challenge I face is what Latika and Vic have been talking about, standard versus customized solutions. My CTO, so one of my KRAs is to be best friends with Ashok's and Vic's of my company, right? So make sure they're happy, and I'm still able to implement the solutions in the organization. However, both the thoughts haunt us every day. One thought is no customization. There are standard solutions available. Those are big players, and they are averse to customization. They say, this is what we have to offer, and we'll supply to the global market. On the reverse side, you have startups who make a lot of good promises, and they're promising, however, and they are able to customize. The challenge, and real on-the-ground challenge, would be the users who we want to make sure they use the tool or they implement the technology in the process are averse to changes, first of all. And second, they still need the best player, but they need with customization. How do you deal with that balance to make sure, at least, because end of the day is the user, and one of my users sitting next to me, if they're not happy what they got, and needs are evolving, you start with one focus. After 6 months, can we now do this? And can we now add this to it? Can we now add this to it? Those buckets gets filled up. So how do you deal with that situation? So maybe Latika and Vic, I will first target to both of you and then additional solutions.
So again, my suggestion is that you really have to see whether it's an old mindset trying to kind of keep tweaking, customizing, because this is the way I did it, right? And that's the best way I've done it, versus taking a couple of steps backwards and understanding. So I do want to emphasize, Talview today is a startup, but it's not really what one thinks about it, a 10% company that's not going to be around, etc. They have built their product with deep engineering focus, deep process focus, and put it together. So understand, and these are mature startups. They've been around for a while. They are not coming and trying, their MVP with you. So my advice would be, there are mature startups there. They have referenceable customers. Leverage with them. They will give them inputs as what you'd like change. And when I keep talking to startups about their product roadmap, I always tell them, I don't care if this particular corporate is your main client, please don't customize for one. If you're hearing the same request from 10 of your clients, absolutely add the feature in. So you need to have the startup needs to have a very strong chief product officer who's identifying what are the asks that are coming out. This is a challenge in India in finding it. American companies, American startups typically have kind of cracked the code on this, because Indian startups want to please their clients and say, okay, we'll go ahead and customize it. So back to your point, my recommendation is, do not request for customization. It will only hamper you in the long run. Ask for feature changes that are being adopted, because then that provider will be able to make sure that things don't break because they've only done something for you.
And I would like to add something here. A mega software firm, and we are sitting on this particular software order, which would be $1 billion. And we talked to the CEO about how unique UN is, UN unique, and how they need to change this and that. And the CEO had only one thing to say: I'll make you follow my rules. I'll make you follow my process. If there are 500 other companies that can run their account receivable, payable, payroll, the way we do it through this major company, why can't you do it? What I'm trying to say here is that you have to have a roadmap alignment session with your users, make them agree, make them adhere to it to a large extent, and then find a company or a solution that has a similar roadmap. You will not get everything that your users want today, but at least you have a roadmap for next 1 year, 6 months, whatever your aggressive cycle is. And then you can tell your user, yes, you will get this in this coming cycle because that's already planned by the solution provider or that company. So roadmap alignment, I think, would really help.
Just as now, Litika ma'am spoke now, is Satya, who is Satya in town in the speech?
Sorry, Satya Nadella, CEO. He's coming in next week.
Microsoft CEO.
Microsoft CEO.
I have a confusion, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Is a question there?
Yes, I have a question. This is Nancy this side. I had a question on Latika ma'am's point that we millennials are very automation driven. But we see that eventually the decision lies in senior management's hand and we see a lot of pushback. So what could be that nail head which we can hit to get them convinced to be an automation driven and leverage whatever we are having currently in the era?
This is exactly, thank you for voicing the concern. This is exactly why I have thrown this point out to all the decision makers, all the HR heads who are here, the CXOs who are here, to say, please listen to the voice of the millennials. They really are very smart when it comes to technology. Get their inputs. Make them part of your steering committee. Right, when you're choosing solutions, they will see things that most who've been using the PeopleSofts, etc. of the world, the older systems, they're the ones who come with the best ideas. So on your behalf, I'm requesting everybody here to make sure that you're part of the team who decides on what technologies to use.
So it's not the one stakeholder game, it's the all stakeholder game. So as long as your governance model gets inputs from all the stakeholders, that's where the difference will be.
Exactly.
Right? So
we can take that step if they are at least welcoming to our ideas, if not accepting, welcoming, if not less, right?
But I just want to add one point to what you're saying. I think I worked with numerous CEOs, but I think many of them are actually appreciative of the whole millennial thoughts, and I think if you see Harsh Goenka, for example, he's very much on Twitter, and he's pretty avid tweeter, and he listens to a lot of millennials. We have a young executive board and all that. So I think it's a myth that probably CEOs are not listening. I think most CEOs today have digital as one of their very strong points that they are driving in their organizations. It's not a matter of when, it's just a matter of how will they do it. That's the whole thing. So it's going to happen, I think.
So I think it's an all stakeholder game, as well as I think the only last point I would make it is also that everyone in the organization wants to drive something, right? So you can't get distracted about doing the same thing, right? I mean, particularly in the large organizations, everyone wants to do the same thing, but their own way, right? Now that has to be looked at the lens of what exactly is the outcome that you're providing, as Daniel mentioned, right? Because you have to be focused on the outcome as well. While you transform, absolutely yes, but you cannot be distracted in the journey, right? Trying to do the same thing in different ways, that's going to be something that people will have to be mindful of, right? So with that, I know we are very much over the time, and everyone is probably looking forward for the lunch. Thanks everyone for the panelists. It was an honor for me to facilitate. Thanks to all of you for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I request Sanjo to please join us on the dais and hand over mementos to our panelists. Let's hear that for Ashok Veera. Thanking Nikhil Shembikar. Daniel Callahan. The only lady on the dais, so big a round of applause for her. That's Latika Pai for us. And Vikrant Bhatnagar.